Hello and welcome to today's webinar. Seeing people drifting in now. Welcome, welcome. I do that awkward bit where I just make idle small talk to myself as people arrive, but we'll get started when we reach a sort of critical mass. Thanks very much for making the time this morning. Much appreciated. Good list of names there. All very well today.
Building up.
We've got some great numbers here. Folks, just give it another minute or so, make sure everybody's in and ready to go. We were initially intending to do this face to face. Dan and I were going to be sat in a room having an actual chat through all of this, but first COVID and now rail strikes in the UK, so we are stymied on that one, but we'll rely on technology to get us through. Hello, Melvin. Great to see you here. Names I'm recognising there. Representatives from Kleene and Blue Light Card. Great to see you all here. And then we'll make a start. Lots of content to get through, and I want to give you all time to ask questions as they occur. So as we go through this, do please use the section within Zoom to ask questions as they occur to you. We'll have a decent bit of time at the end of the webinar to go through those questions and answer them. So no stupid questions. As always, just ask what occurs and we'll see what we can get through. Okay, let's make a start. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for making the time this morning to dial in and listen to this webinar. Got some really exciting content to run through with you all this morning. So I'll start off with a quick intro to me. I'm going to then ask Dan to run through a little bit of background for him, and then we'll get into the content of the session. So as it says on screen, I'm Matt. I'm co-founder and chief data officer at Kleene. We'll hear a lot about what Kleene is, what Kleene does specifically for Blue Light Card, but a bit about my background. So I've worked in data for many years. Started off life as a data analyst, and then moved into sort of data leadership positions at various different businesses, generally in the e-commerce space, overseeing data engineering, data analytics, data science. So the whole gamut of data solutions, really getting value from all about. And that's inspired what we've built at Kleene, at least in part. So we'll obviously hear a lot more about that as it pertains to Blue Light Card. But Dan, do you want to pick up the mic and say a few words about yourself?
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks, Matt. So I'm Dan, and I'm the analytics engineer at Blue Light Card. And what that means is I'm responsible for cleaning, combining, and managing the data and the data pipelines, and make sure that they feed through to our data analysts and other end users efficiently and effectively.
Fantastic. Thanks, Dan, and welcome. Thanks so much for making the time and putting together this fantastic content that we're going to go through. So what are we actually going to talk about today? Well, I'm going to ask Dan to take us through a little bit of background about Blue Light Card for those of you who are not familiar with the organisation and the brand. And from there, we'll dive into where Blue Light Card have come from with regards to data infrastructure, and the journey they've been on with Kleene as a solution in the heart of their data platform, and what that's meant for the business in terms of building that sort of data-driven, data-inspired culture, and talk a little bit about the return on investment that they are seeing, the benefits, and then really looking to the future. What's next for Blue Light Card as an organisation, and specifically within the data space. So with that in mind, over to you, Dan. Do you want to just sort of kick us off and give us a little bit of background about the organisation itself?
Yeah, so at Blue Light Card, for those of you who don't know, we are the discount service for people who work in the emergency services and a few other roles. And effectively, we face kind of two different directions. So we face our members, and we're always trying to bring new members on. But at the same time, we're also working with our partners and trying to deliver better discounts and more discounts for our members. We've got over 2 million members across our user base, and they get a 2-year card when they sign up, and that gives them discounts at over 15,000 different partners, which I think is pretty fantastic.
Incredible stuff. Yeah, fantastic service you guys provide. I mean, I'm sure lots of us on the call have got friends, relatives, loved ones in the emergency services. So my wife is a registered nurse and benefits from Blue Light Card services on a regular basis. So yeah, fantastic service, amazing stuff. So going from that, what obviously what we've put on slide there is really looking at the data that you guys are sort of examining, pulling from. So do you want to just talk a little bit about that, put some flesh on the bones of what's on screen?
Absolutely, yes. There's kind of two key groups of data that we track. We've got all of our internal data that we track through our app and through our website. But then we've also got our external data. So for example, you'll come to us and you'll look at an offer, but then when you actually click on that offer, you'll go through to an external website. And that's where obviously we can't track that data ourselves. It'll be on an external platform, and we then have to pull that data in. And that's exactly where Kleene come in to help us pull all of that data through. So I'm going to start a little bit by talking about the internal data. So firstly, we track members. So we track demographics. So for example, date of birth and gender and that sort of stuff. We also track life cycles. So this is related to member engagement. So if you do lots of clicks on our app and use it a lot, then you'll be one of our champions. But then we've also got lots of other groups depending on how active you are. And then we also track marketing. So there's a couple of things on this. Firstly, we obviously track all of our newsletters that we send out, but then we also track all of our marketing opt-ins. So for example, if you've opted in for emails, if you've opted in for SMSs, and if you've opted in for analytics. And that's obviously pretty key because, you know, if you said that you don't want emails and we send you an email, you're going to be rightfully quite miffed. So that's sort of key piece of information that we do track. Then on our partners, we obviously track all of our different companies that come through us, but then also all of their individual offers. So actually most companies will have more than one offer, particularly let's say they might have a 10% all the time offer, but then on a particular period like Christmas or Black Friday, they might have that, say 20% or something like that. And then we'll also track sort of the start and end dates of those individual offers when they come up. So we track all of that. And then finally, we track the engagement of those partners. So, you know, how many times they've been searched for, how many clicks they've had, how many views they've had, and all that sort of stuff. So that's all of our internal data. We can track ourselves within the app, but then talking a little bit about where you guys really come in with the external data. So we track transactions. So this is when the actual items get bought. There'll be a transaction, and we'll track the spend that the members spend, and we'll track the commission that we get off that. And so that's a key thing that we then feed through to our finance team. We also track approvals. So the importance of an approval is just because the item's sold, it doesn't mean it's been approved. So we'll have to wait for, usually it's the return period. So if you bought an item somewhere that got a 30-day returns period, that item won't be approved until you've actually passed that returns period and they can no longer return it. And that's actually a really key thing that we track, because that's the moment where we know we can actually request that money from our partners. And that's something we've worked really heavily with you guys on for the last year, sort of make sure that all of our stuff is properly approved and we're actually getting these backfills, make sure we know that of our historic data, what of it has been approved. That's been really key. And then finally, product data, which is an exciting new thing that we've been working on lately, and trying to bring through, and actually splitting out those individual transactions into multiple products. So we know, for example, that maybe you bought something from JD, but actually have you bought more of a fashion item, or have you bought more of a sports item? And actually breaking it down to those products actually really helps us then segment further down the line. That's an overall view of our external data.
Stuff. So you're really building up that sort of data visibility of the ecosystem, the marketplace that is created by the Blue Light Card product offering. So capturing that the sort of customer, the member information, the interaction that they have with your partner product providers, and then the actual transactions that generates. Incredible sort of ecosystem of data that you're catching there, really informative. Amazing stuff. So if we think about the actual technology underpinning this, obviously there's where you were and where you are now. If we think first about the way you were, where you've come from as an organization from a technology perspective, underpinning all of the data, or at least some of the data that you've just talked to. Of course, lots of that data has been added in subsequently. So do you want to just, again, sort of talk a little bit to that landscape from a technology perspective at the point that you made the investment with Kleene?
Yeah, 100%. So sort of pre-Kleene and sort of, over a year ago now, what we had a MySQL server where we were putting into all of our raw data, and that was fed by a daily data insert, something that we internally call the Snaffler, which is a bit of a fun name, and that would bring through all of our sort of daily, like a daily snapshot of all of our data from yesterday. But actually this also would take sort of over 24 hours to run because there was just so much data in it. So actually, for example, we wouldn't get Monday data until Wednesday. Which was great. We were still getting the data through, but it was taking a little bit longer than maybe we ideally want. So that's something we've managed to kind of improve on since. And then finally, this was all feeding through into Power BI dashboards. And actually, at this point, we had no transform layer. So all of our transformations, all of our cleaning, all of our taking our raw data and turning it into productionized stuff, that was all happening within the Power BI dashboard. So we're doing our transformations there and then feeding that through to the key stakeholders. That's how things used to look. You're on mute, Matt.
I muted to prevent you all from hearing me coughing. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, so really common kind of setup there where you've got your production systems, the systems that are capturing that data and creating that data just through their their second by second operations, and then connecting that directly to a BI solution. Really missing out that middle layer, the data layer that we're talking about, and having therefore being forced to do those transforms, those data operations in your BI tool. And of course, it's often a great place to start to get sort of visibility of what you have and demonstrate the sort of the art of the possible. But of course, it doesn't scale. You end up in a place where things slow down, they creak. The operations that you can perform on top of that data is somewhat limited, and you have that scalability problem. As your data grows, the number of data sources grow, you run into all sorts of challenges there. Amazing, which I think really, if I think back to the early conversations with Blue Light Card, that is the point that we arrived. That was the kind of pain points that you guys were experiencing, and where that conversation really sort of bore fruit. So let's jump forward in time and think about and talk about where you guys are now from an infrastructure perspective. You want to take the reins and talk through it?
Absolutely. Yeah, so really exciting. So you can see 3 new fantastic solutions on there. So firstly, one of the things we had to do was we had to get a proper data warehouse to really speed up our analysis and all that sort of stuff. So we brought in a data warehouse, we brought in Redshift, which is fantastic. And like you say, really sort of expands out that scalability and lets us expand our data without leading to sort of increased run times, which is fantastic. So we've brought that in. We've then connected that into Kleene, which is what I'm here to talk about today. And we've brought Kleene in to actually connect us to all of these disparate data sources. So, we've got all these different platforms across the web. And you guys now are a one-stop shop to not only bring all that data in, but then to also clean and take us from those ingest raw data sets through to our productionized data sets, which then feed perfectly through into our Tableau visualization tool, which is also what we've brought in. And we've really tried to take out the cleaning from the visualization layer now and have that just for the visualization and making it look pretty while doing all of the actual nitty-gritty stuff in Kleene.
Amazing, yeah. So that is that middle layer that I was just mentioning. So having that cloud-based data warehouse, Redshift in this instance, having the as you described, that transform layer move out of your BI tool, out of your visualization tool, into that near infinitely scalable platform, which is what a cloud data warehouse gives you, capturing huge volumes of data, applying the logic on top of that data, and building the models that Tableau then feed off, which is just a fantastic place to be in terms of scalability, in terms of the speed of execution there. Redshift can operate across those huge volumes of data really, really quickly and turn Tableau into an incredibly powerful tool for what we're going to talk about, which is really the sort of democratization of data across the organization. But before we get to that, Dan, obviously this has been a fantastic journey for both the organization, but also you personally, and I'd like to take the opportunity to congratulate you on your recent promotion. Fantastic news and real testament to the not only the work you've put in, but the benefit the business is seeing there. So do you want to talk a little bit about a little bit more about the sort of the details of the journey that you've been on? We've seen the before, we've got the after. Let's flesh out the journey in the middle.
100%. So first, I think the thing I've really got to talk about has got to be the extract layer, because like I say, with all our different platforms, that's massive to what Kleene have really delivered for us. So we've got 18 different unique data platforms that we're pulling data from. And that's a combination of affiliate transaction platforms and customer support platforms. And basically, we've continued to grow this as we come along. So now we're at 18, but when we started, it was close to 10, and we're just constantly bringing new ones on. And as you say, Kleene has really helped us sort of have that scalability. And if we do want to connect to a new one now, it's really easy. We've also got a combination of sort of incremental and backfill data loads. That feeds back to my point about approvals. So we did originally just have incremental extracts, but actually we've had to bring on a whole layer of backfill extracts as well to make sure that we're constantly looking back and checking have any of our transactions been approved and updating accordingly. We've then got loads of extracts for product and company data as well. So when you add all this together, we're talking sort of 30 to 40 different extracts all working at the same time simultaneously, and then scheduled to run regularly into the data warehouse. So we set most of them to run sort of every hour on the hour, and that's constantly bringing us in this sort of live data streams that we can then use. And I think the key thing here is that you guys have built and maintained, all of these. All we've sort of done is we've said, we want to connect this platform, and sort of said how we want that to look and sort of data we want it to bring through. And then you guys have gone away and done all of that. So we really haven't had to do anything in terms of building these. We haven't had to write a single line of script. That's all been Kleene side, which has just been phenomenal. And there's no way we could have done it that easily without you. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah, I think that sort of outsourcing of your data engineering is really the way.
Exactly.
And yeah, what we can see on the screen now on the left-hand side is just some of those data sources. So really looking at the affiliate networks that really are serving up those different offers, those different products to the members network, and then of course they're handling the flow of data from the Blue Light Card platform out to those partner platforms. You click on an offer from Currys and you go through one of these affiliate networks onto Currys to make the purchase and get that discount. So those are the sources that we're looking at, some of the sources that we're looking at on the left, and that's what the Kleene platform is connecting to pull that data in, land that in that warehouse, and then that's where our work starts and where your work stops and where your work starts. Of course, that's where all the operations on top of that data are built out. So do you want to just talk a little bit to, as I move the slides on, into that bit of it, where the work for the Blue Light Card internal team picks up?
Yeah, exactly. So this is where I sort of come in a lot more heavily. So I'll actually, firstly, we've got the transforms. So I'm actually involved in writing the transforms. So I do write some SQL, and you see sort of a nice transform, a nice fun transform on the right there. So we've got 127 transforms that we've created sort of over the last year, and that's feeding all of our data from, like I say, from our ingest schema, our kind of raw ingest schema, through to our productionized schema ready to be visualized in Tableau. And again, we can schedule these. So these are all, majority are running sort of again every hour. So again, we're getting that daily data, and that's fed in perfectly with a kind of internal project we've had, where we've shifted away from that daily snaffler and moved towards using Kinesis Firehose to do sort of regular streams of data feeding into our data warehouse. And then, we've made sure that both our external and our internal is now fully live and feeding through the transform layer, which is fantastic. Something else quickly to mention is the DAG. So this is a really good way to kind of visualize all the transforms. You can see how they all connect together. You can look at a full view and of every transform you've got, their dependencies and their prerequisites and all of that, and how they all feed together. You can look at it on a total level, or you can look at it on a specific transform level. So you can look at a single transform and see what are the transforms that connects to. And it really just lets you visualize what's happening under the hood, which is brilliant. There's also a logging functionality. And this is really useful. So basically, it just allows you to see if there's been any issues with any of your runs. So you can see sort of when they start, when they finish, whether they succeeded or failed. And actually, with the extracts, it also gives you sort of step by step how it's going and the steps along the way, which is fantastic. So they've got that in the app, but then they've also recently set up a new Slack webhook feature. So now the moment there is an issue with any of our transforms or any of our extracts, we immediately get pinged that, oh, there's been an issue, have a look, and I can immediately just go and fix it there and then, which has been phenomenal and saves me, checking the logging tab. I'll just know immediately if there's been a problem, so I can actually focus fully on other stuff that I want to work on, which has been amazing. And then finally, we've got the manual file ingest. This has been fantastic for us. And effectively what this is, it just lets you feed a CSV or an Excel file directly into the data warehouse. And this is a feature within Clean, which has been fantastic for us because we do get those kind of odd files where, you could feed it into S3 and then copy it over. But actually, it's so much easier just to feed it through the Clean platform and get it to create the table for you. It just, you feed the file in. It says, these are the columns it will create. You say yes, and it's all done. Nice and easy. Takes seconds rather than the kind of minutes it might take to feed it through S3 or another method. So that's been fantastic for us as well.
Amazing stuff. And obviously, right in sort of in the weeds of all the functionality that the Clean app is providing there. Everybody listening, if you have any questions around that, if that's sort of piqued any curiosity, please do get the questions into the chat, and we can sort of pick those off towards the end of the webinar and talk to some of that a little bit more. But I think if we sort of zoom out a little bit from this, what you're really sort of describing here is the automation of the stuff that that would otherwise be manual, take up a lot of your time. You said exactly, you can diagnose any issues very quickly, fix them, and get back to the more value add, which is fantastic to hear from one data professional to another. That's always good to hear. Nobody wants to be busying themselves with the plumbing when there's the value add at the other end. But if we think about that value add from a business perspective, what has this really actually enabled within Blue Light Card? I think you're going to talk about the cultural change. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we've really helped. So all of what's happened, everything that you guys have managed to build with us, has really allowed us to develop a proper data-inspired culture. And we like the word data-inspired because the idea is effectively people will look at the data, they'll self-serve. They'll look at what it's saying, and then they'll have a spark, and they'll come up with their own ideas of how they can then use that data to drive their teams forward. So really, it's about how we've delivered self-serve to the business, and that's been really durable, obviously, with what you guys have done for us, but then also bringing Tableau on board. So as I mentioned before, we obviously set up the Redshift cluster at the end of 2020. We've then since adopted Tableau, and since then we've managed to deliver reports across the business functions. So we now have 77 reports across 12 different themes. And actually, we did recently shift from a method of themes rather than teams. So we used to have, let's say, a marketing folder and a partnerships folder. But actually, we were worried that people in marketing were thinking, oh, this is our folder, this is just for us. And, the partnership reports aren't for us. So actually, we shifted away from that and say, instead of marketing, now we'll have members. And instead of partnerships, now we'll have commercials. And now, if you're in marketing, you're not sat there thinking, oh, I can only look at the members group. Actually, you might be interested in commercials one day. You might want to have a look at something that's in customer services. So it really kind of opens that up and lets people look across the platform and really opens up the whole Tableau to everyone, which has been fantastic. But we've also really managed to expand the viewership. So we've got about 100 employees at Blue Light Card, and 53 of those are Tableau users. So sort of around 50% of us are on Tableau and regularly using it, which is fantastic. And really something that we've really delivered to try and make sure that the whole business is involved and actually using the dashboards, because at the end of the day, you can make the best dashboards in the world, but if people aren't looking at them, then what's the point? So we've really worked to try and drive that, and I'll be mentioning a little bit later about how we're going to try and drive that even further going forward.
Yeah, that's super exciting. I think what you're describing there is the sort of holy grail that businesses so often strive to achieve and is very difficult to do, which is data democratization. Ultimately, you want to be putting that data into the hands of the people who need to be making decisions. I love the data inspired instead of data driven terminology. Having that data there to look at and inspire that thought, trigger that thought process. So really, you're turning all of those 53 and hopefully more into the future, all of those people into analysts. Fundamentally, everybody can be an analyst, if you know the questions you want to ask and you have the data to ask those questions of, then that's analysis. That is fundamentally what it's all about. Incredible stuff. How did you find the transition? Just a quick question for me. How did you find the transition from Power BI to Tableau? Was that
So I think, yeah, so actually it wasn't too bad, because so my understanding is, I wasn't actually here when we did the actual transition, but my understanding is that there weren't actually that many people using it at the time. It was more just an executive level thing. So it was more for the higher levels of business. But actually one of the major things I think we wanted to do when we shifted to Tableau was really try and make it a cross business idea, rather than it just being a select few people looking at it, really bringing it to the whole business. So actually, yeah, not too difficult. And actually overall, I think it saved us a lot of pain overall in the end. So definitely been worth it for us.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, amazing. So if we think about the return on investment that's been generated by all of this, obviously we've talked about the pipelines and sort of automation of some of that harder stuff, the impact that's had in terms of the data usage within the business. But what's that meant materially for the organization?
Yeah, so I think the big thing really is that now that we've got these transforms creating these productionized data sets, we've got sort of one source of the truth now, which really feeds into the Tableau dashboard. So we know that we can create self-serve, and we know that we can trust what the dashboards are saying, for example, going to the last point. So that's been fantastic. But also having all of these large, clean data sets means that we can really take them further and take them into sort of more advanced analytics and data science territory. So we've been doing lots of kind of analyzing and identifying trends using Jupyter Notebooks and Python. And then we've actually gone further than that and used that to create machine learning models that can then make predictions for our business going forward. So we really are sort of looking at foresight rather than hindsight. So that's been fantastic. And so far we've created models for renewal predictions, so predicting when we expect someone to renew and whether they will renew or not. But also sign-up forecasting, so forecasting how many sign-ups we're expecting each day over the coming year. So those are just two models that we worked on so far. We're still sort of in the early stages, but we're kind of playing about with those, and then we're going to go from there and really start to build out other ones as well. But none of this would have been doable without having that sort of infrastructure in place, which we now have thanks to Kleene.
So those models that you're using, the predictive models, as you say, fueled by that data that is being pulled in across the members, the partners, and the transactions, those different data sources, ultimately putting that all together into one. That fundamentally is what's enabling those models to be generated.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got lots of different things feeding through. It's how many times have they viewed, how many times have they clicked, and then sort of the recency of those clicks. And it's just, it's lots of different streams all feeding through into one sort of massive machine learning model with lots of features to try and predict how likely you think someone is to renew, and actually then deciding, if you're on the sort of, so sure, if we think you've got a 0% chance of renewing because you've not done anything for the past 2 years, maybe not focus on them, and actually people who we think definitely are going to renew, not focusing so much on them, but actually looking at those midpoints where you're kind of 50-50, and what can we actually do to really kind of drive those people to renew.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing, actually. It's not all about the sort of optimizing the money you are spending or the efforts you are putting in. It's the who to target that at fundamentally, and where there is no chance of renewal, and the data tells you that with a high probability of being correct on that prediction. Just don't go after that. Don't focus your efforts on that audience at all, and instead invest in the people who are likely. You are actually likely to persuade. Huge return on investment from that perspective. Fantastic stuff. And the sort of custom segmentation, you're really looking at the now that you can see not just member information in isolation, but the products that they're buying, the products that people who look like them are buying. That's starting to really inform those models as well. Which is amazing to see. Okay, great stuff. So I'd love to look forward into the future a little bit, and just could you talk to what the really what the future holds in terms of the ability to capitalize on the data platform that you've built, leveraging those models. What's the future plans for Blue Light Card?
So the future plans for Blue Light Card. So firstly, one of the really exciting things we're doing is we are expanding internationally. So we're not 100% sure where that's going to be yet. but we're looking at a few options, which is very exciting. And then obviously working with you guys, it's going to be really important that we kind of first we've got to replicate sort of Redshift cluster, but then we'll be replicating those full pipelines. So working with you to replicate the extracts and the transforms as well. So we've got those duplicated pipelines bringing through into that cluster as well. So that'll be a big thing that we're working on. Another big thing is closing the data gap. So there's a few areas for this. So firstly, we've got some missing transactions. And what I mean by that is obviously everyone who comes through an affiliate platform, as we saw earlier, you know, your attractions, your A-wins, we're bringing all that data through because there's a sort of set method that they all track their data on. But actually, there's lots of partners who actually come to us directly. So it's only on their own website. They don't host it with any particular platform, and they don't really have a standardized way of tracking that data. So really trying to work with those partners to try and get them to give a data that fits with the granularity that we're used to with our platforms. So that's something that our partnerships teams will work quite heavily on, and potentially working with you guys as well to try and bring through that data in an alternative method. We're also looking at transaction member tracking. So for every transaction, making sure there's an associated member. So we have this with the majority of our platforms, but there's actually a couple of platforms where we still aren't properly feeding through that member ID. So actually we'll get a transaction, but we don't know who's actually bought it. And bringing that stuff on, will be vital to make sure that we can properly segment our user base even better. So that's something we're working heavily with you guys to make sure we're bringing through the correct data. And then also, as we mentioned before, product data is a really big one. So that's something we started doing a little bit. So we brought it through for a couple of our key platforms, but actually expanding that to all of our platforms is now one of the big steps over the next year. And making sure that we're getting all of our product data through, so we can, as you say, segment even better by knowing exactly what products someone's bought, and therefore being able to push them more deals for the sort of stuff that they're interested in. That's product data. We're also looking at personalized marketing. So firstly, just little things like a personal touch. So when we send our emails out saying like, hey Dan, here's some great offers for you, here's some stuff we think you'd love. And then also further from that, further down the line, trying to make sure that they are truly customized to each person. Something we'll also be looking at. We're also looking at roundups. So I don't know if you have Spotify, but they have kind of like an annual roundup that I really love and look forward to. And basically, we want to try and do something similar where we're saying, hey, you've saved this much this year through Blue Light Card. You've gone to these offers. You really like this company. These are your favorites. You're in the top 1% for JD Sports, that sort of stuff. That's something we'd love to sort of bring in the future. And then tablet optimizations. This fits through to something I discussed earlier, where really we want to take that sort of 50% of people using Tableau, firstly expand that and actually try and get even more people in the business using Tableau, a high percentage, but then actually really trying to drive up the rates of usage within that group. So for those who do use it, you know, what do you like? Actually, what could be better? But then those who aren't using it so much, you know, why? Is it because there's missing data? Is it because the data is not set out in a way that's useful to you, or actually is it a training issue, and should we be providing more training to make sure you can get the insights that you need? And then finally, forecasting. So as I mentioned, we've got forecasting. We've started with a couple sort of models so far, but we really want to expand this across the business and make sure that all the KPIs are properly covered by our forecasting models, so we get to a point where we are fully working off the data to deliver all of our targets. So that's another big key thing for the next year.
Huge. Yeah, exciting times ahead. I mean, the international expansion is tantalizing. Can't wait to hear about where you're going, what's next. So I'd love to just drop back onto the return on investment. So the sort of the future is bright. We're seeing exciting things coming down the pipeline, and of course, what's really enabling that is the freeing of resource. From a data perspective, it'd be great to just hear a little bit more about that from your perspective, sort of boots on the ground, and the you know, what's happened there in the past and what that means for these plans. So if I just if I skip back to this slide, obviously talking about the reduction in resource required on your side. Could you just flesh that out a little bit?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Absolutely. So the fact that we've brought Kleene in means that at no point have we ever needed a data engineer. So the only people who we've ever needed, firstly, it was Alex, who was our data director, who was working to help initially build up the platform. And then since then, it's fed through to me. But at no point have we ever needed a data engineer to bring on, you know, all 18 unique platforms, you know, 40 extracts, and deliver sort of 127 different transforms and different pipelines. We've never needed a data engineer. If we didn't have you guys, we would have needed at least one lead data engineer, if not more realistically, a whole team data engineers to have really built those up and then managed them. So it's massively reduced the resources required on our side. It's also sort of provided a great platform for us to basically create, manage and track our transforms and our pipelines. So it's really brought it all together, unified it, and ensured, as I said, we've got that. It's one version of the truth. We know what's on there is correct, and we know that it follows these specific pipelines. So we've not got sort of 20 to 30 different dashboards all doing their own little fun things off in the corners. We know it's all flowing through this central location. It's all managed, it's all logged. If there's any issues, we immediately know that there's a problem. And it really just gives us that fantastic way to track all of that. It's actually really helped us to deliver improved performance against our targets as well. So firstly, when we first took you on, you know, our daily commissions were at about half of what they are now. So since then, we've managed to double the daily commissions coming in. And that's, you know, we've got no doubt that that's partially due to all of the marketing and the sort of increased and improved segmentation and insight that we've been able to drive from our dashboards that have been fed by Kleene. So that's been phenomenal. But then also we really managed to improve our renewals versus target as well. So before we were seeing sort of around minus 14% against target. And since bringing on Kleene, we've really managed to boost that up to 7% over target. So we've seen a massive change in the number of renewals coming to. And again, that's we believe that that's due to the impact of bringing on Kleene and having all of these new insights. Another thing that I think is fantastic that you guys do is that you have an absolutely rapid response to any questions or issues we have. So there's a couple of ways that we keep in touch with each other. So firstly, we've got the Slack channel that I mentioned before. And I would usually, if I've put an issue or a request or a question on that, I would usually see an answer on that within 5 to 10 minutes, which to me is phenomenal. Like, that's extremely fast. You know, I'm getting sort of instant answers to my questions. And even if you don't know the answer, you'll immediately go away and you'll find out from the devs or something like that. We're always kept up to date and you get those answers through really quickly. So that's phenomenal. But then we also have a weekly catch up between me and your customer rep. Where we'll talk through all of the issues that are ongoing, all the tickets that we've got, any requests that we've got, all that sort of stuff. We'll go through and make sure all's in line. And to be honest, the amount of work I have to do for those is minimal because you guys are always so on it. I basically show up and Em will always tell me exactly what's going on. Got it all tracked and it's all done phenomenally smoothly. And you always take the onus on yourselves to really deliver the results as well. There's no kind of blame game which you get with other companies. You know, you're always happy to help and do a fantastic job doing it. So that is phenomenal. Basically, just adding all of this together, what it does is it just frees up time for our team to focus on delivering on other stuff effectively. So like I say, you know, I'm the only person who's actually put on this and delivering all this stuff. But I would say that I probably spend less than half of my time actually managing the Kleene platform just because it's so automated and you guys do so much with it for us. So actually, I'm freed up to spend the rest of my time managing the Redshift cluster, managing the Tableau instance, but then also really delivering on data science stuff. So I've been involved with some of the forecasting, which has been phenomenal. So yeah, it's really sort of freed up my time to focus on stuff that, you know, you probably wouldn't be doing as a traditional sort of data analytics engineer. So that's been fantastic.
Well, Dan, it's music to my ears. It's a difficult thing to do, sit there and listen to that much praise. But what's fantastic is that that praise is for the platform, for the service, and I think it's important that data is a complex space, right? I think it's important that there is that collaboration, that is that working together. You guys know exactly what it is to do with the business. We know data, and between that set of skills, we can end up with results like this. So incredible to hear. Okay, so starting to see some questions coming through. Do please keep those coming. I think from my perspective, something that's really interesting to me, fascinating to me through my career, is that data adoption piece. And you talked about, you know, just over 50% of the organization are starting to utilize those Tableau dashboards. How are you tracking that, and how are you seeing the adoption change over time?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we are heavily tracking that. So, for example, I actually did do a bit of a piece to have a look at what usage rates are recently, and when I checked, sort of those 53, 24 had actually used Tableau within the last 24 hours, which is about 45%, and 37 had used it within the last 14 days, which is about 70%. So, you know, that's fantastic. It's great to see people using it because, like I say, you can make the best dashboards in the world if people aren't looking at it. There's no point. So it's fantastic to see people are using it. but it still actually does leave us with space to improve. And that's where that Tableau optimization piece that I mentioned will really come in, and try to drive that sort of 45% used it in the last 24 hours up to sort of the 60s, the 70s, and the 80%, and really make sure that everyone is using it to its max potential.
And yeah, so have you seen that sort of ramp up over time? Is it the actual sort of output that the team are getting, presumably is the sort of direct influence? So yeah, have you seen that ramp as you built out the more and more dashboards? And is that really the plan for that sort of optimization and bringing more adoption on?
Yeah, so we definitely have seen. Sorry, yeah, so we definitely have seen that ramp up from the sort of beginning. I don't have the initial usage stats, but certainly when you compare to how many people we had on before, and particularly going back to the Power BI days where it was sort of just sort of key executives, I think now that there is a real trust of what's there because of the centralized platform behind the scenes, but then also the fact that everyone's using it, I think actually that kind of increases usage, because one person will see something and they'll mention it to someone else in the team, and then you've got multiple people using it. So I think really kind of spreading it out actually does increase the usage, because now everyone can refer back to it. So we've definitely seen increased usage and increased mention of it coming back to us. So people will always come back to us if they notice anything, or if there's any kind of cool insights that they've got. And definitely our marketing and partnerships analysts will be working heavily with the specific teams to make sure they're delivering the best on those.
Yeah, it starts to become a sort of self-fulfilling, self-generating thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
Insight generates questions, which generates
which then generates more dashboards, which generates more viewers. So it's, yeah, like I say, it's perfectly cyclical, which is, yeah, fantastic and exactly what we want.
Amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. Yeah, another question that occurs to me: the sort of reduction in resource. So you're a sort of small and close-knit team at Blue Light Card for data. Tell me a bit more about the team, the sort of makeup of the skills, and what the plans are for, if there are any, for expanding the team itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So originally, when you looked at that kind of pre-clean team, there were just two of us. So it was Alex Gray, who's our data director, and Chris, who was our data scientist. And since then, we've expanded massively. So now we've kind of got the kind of engineer scientist-ish team, which is me, or me effectively. We've then got the analysts. So we've got two senior analysts and then a junior analyst, which will actually be coming on soon. We've also got our research team, which is a big thing that Alex has brought on, because he truly believes in sort of research and talking to the members to try and get that kind of qualitative data to feed into the quantitative data that we're getting through the platform. So we've got our research team, and we've got a senior researcher and a junior researcher there. And then we've also got our UX teams, which again, so normally that might be in the tech team, but actually we really think that UX feeds into data a little bit, in the fact that they will be delivering the journey in the app and the web. Actually, that sits quite well with data in terms of us delivering what we think the preferred journey should be, and then they can really deliver on that. So those are kind of the four key areas, sort of engineering, analysis, research, and UX. And in terms of the future, like I said, we'll be bringing on a new junior analyst. And I think in terms of very soon, that is all of our major hires. But there probably will be more news coming soon, because we are constantly growing. I think we are constantly looking to see where else we can add more capacity.
Incredible. Yeah, fantastic stuff. And be able to hire those people knowing that they're coming into a platform that will scale, and that, you know, the data's sorted, and what you're really looking at is the output from that data. It's a lovely position to be in. Amazing to hear the sort of inclusion of the research, fascinating piece, and UX in there as well. Yeah, really good stuff. Questions come in. Everybody, do please keep those questions coming in. If this is prompting any thoughts, don't be shy. The questions. So first question: how do you see Kleene supporting in your global expansion? So obviously you talked about the expansion internationally, and you talked a little bit about the Redshift clusters. Do you just, I guess, expand on that a little bit? What's the how do you see that? How do you see that going? What are the technical challenges if there are?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think actually, due to Kleene, the technical challenges will hopefully be quite small. So really, I think it's going to be a case of replicating our existing extracts, which again is something that you guys will be delivering. So we'll tell you which extracts we'll be using in the new location, and that'll just be a case of either, hopefully, just a duplication, but if not, perhaps a new extract will need to be created, which will obviously require a request from our side to get you guys to build that. So that'll sort of be minimal work from our side, thanks to, again, the Kleene platform. And then with the transforms, it will hopefully just be a case of firstly creating that new transform instance, because I think we'll need sort of a new account for that, but then it'll just be a case of copying over the scripts for those transforms, because the transforms will work effectively the same, it'll have the exact same structure. It'll just be about really duplicating that over. So it'll hopefully, because of the platform, will just be a copy paste. So actually, we're quite relaxed about the amount of workload that will be required, just because all of the infrastructure is there ready for us, which is brilliant.
Very nice. Yeah, of course. I suppose, yeah, the transforms are built in Redshift SQL. Of course, it's operating on top of that Redshift warehouse. So spinning up another Redshift, another instance, that copy and paste really does stand up screeching. So that's great news. Mm-hmm. Question which might put you a little bit on the spot, so do feel free to not answer if you can't. But somebody has directly asked, where will you be expanding? What are the countries? I'm assuming that's all sort of private and confidential at the moment.
It's a great question. I'm afraid I can't answer it as of now. We are looking at a few candidates. You're going to get the PR response here. Yeah, we're looking at a few candidates. We're not 100% sure yet. It's something that's going through internal deliberations. We do have, we've definitely sent it on particular locations, but we just don't want to reveal publicly what we're thinking about yet. But yeah, definitely we'll let you guys know as soon as we do.
Say no more, Dan. If the data game doesn't work out for you, I think there's a role in PR, definitely. Yeah. Amazing. Okay, so another question you've had. It sounds like you have a large data team. 2 questions. What would be your recommendation for building out a data team with Kleene in place? Which skills to prioritize first? And secondly, how are you getting buy-in to expand the data team so much? So yeah, let's start with the first one. What's the sort of skills mix that you'd be looking for, assuming Kleene is in place?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a bit of a knowledge of data warehousing would probably be useful, and probably a knowledge of either Redshift or a different one. So you could have Snowflake or maybe GCP, which I think you work with all 3 of those. Is that right, Matt?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think having some kind of prior knowledge of a data warehouse would be useful. Although actually, when I originally came in, that wasn't something that I'd actually explicitly used before. So it is something you can learn quite quickly as well. But then I think the big thing I would say that's a bit non-negotiable would be SQL knowledge. So I think you probably should have a good knowledge of SQL to a decent standard, so that you can actually sort of build those transforms. Once you've got that extract in, you can actually build the transforms that will take you from those raw data sets through to the productionized data sets that you want to see. So in my head, that's the number one. And then, yeah, I think having data warehouse knowledge as well would be useful.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Yeah, the ability to know what it is you want to do with the data, and then the SQL skills to execute that. Then Kleene is, of course, taking care of all of the scheduling, the automation, the orchestration of that. So there's none of the more kind of typical DBA and DevOps type skills, data engineering type skills required. And the second part of that question, which I love, yeah, how are you getting buy-in from the wider business to expand? Mm-hmm. What's the mechanism for that?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple mechanisms there. I think firstly, we've made sure to actually have analysts be facing specific teams. So like I said, I think 2 of the major teams that we feed into are marketing and partnerships. And actually, we have a sort of senior marketing facing analyst and a senior partnerships facing analyst who are really embedded in the team and are almost between functions. So they are in the data team, but they really face their specific team, and we'll go to their meetings, have discussions with them. And then there was also a lot of sessions that they would set up. So for example, our partnerships analyst would set up lots of sessions with people in partnerships to make sure that she was showing them, how to use the dashboards, what kind of insights she could get from them, and then also kind of feeding back what they want. Because I think, it's always a 2-way street. You want to create the best dashboard that you can, but actually it's great to have that feedback from them then to help you build that out. So I think it's sort of seeing it as a 2-way process and cyclically building out these reports so that they can actually deliver what partnerships or marketing want to see. So I think that's a key way that you deliver that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So the hub and spoke model almost, where you've got the data kind of center of excellence on the how to do the thing, but then the what it is you're doing comes from the functions themselves, and having them aligned in that way. It means that it's don't have a sort of bunch of navel gazing data initiatives that aren't aligned to what the business is after. So I think that is really critical to make sure it is, data is a service function within an organization. It's got to be aligned to what the another question come in. So when starting this journey, what routes were you looking at? And I know this is going back to slightly before your time, Dan, but hopefully you can talk to me a little bit. Yeah, what were the routes you were looking at, and what made you choose?
Yes, there's firstly a thing on clean versus not clean. So I think I've kind of discussed this a little bit before. So what was the alternative to getting clean? The alternative effectively was to bring in a full data engineering team. So we would have needed at least, like I said, at least a lead data engineer, if not a whole team. So we probably would have started with a lead data engineer and then built out from that as we'd scaled. And now we probably have a team of data engineers. I think also in terms of alternatives, we did look at alternative clusters. So I think we did look at Snowflake, for example. So again, you can look at different data warehouses for what we've achieved. But in the end, based on what we required of our data, that it has to be kept within country, we had to go with Redshift. So I think those are kind of the key alternative options that we could have picked.
Yeah, I remember that conversation actually. Yes, we did look at Snowflake. Of course, the Kleene platform is agnostic to the data warehouse technology, but Redshift versus Snowflake was a key decision point for you guys. And of course, the sensitivity of data that you're handling and the constraints around that was really what led to the Redshift decision. And the follow-on to that question was, now that it's implemented, what has been, in your opinion, the biggest benefit of the choice you made compared to those other routes? I think you've sort of talked that already, that the cost savings and complexity reduction of not having to hire data engineers. But is there anything else that sort of springs to mind, or does that cover it?
Yeah, I suppose, like I say, the biggest benefit of having done that is the fact that we haven't had to hire a whole team of data engineers. I think it's worked quite well that you're always on hand to try and fix issues as well, which I think obviously with data engineers, I think there's always capacity at Kleene, if that makes sense, because you're a big organization. If we've just had 3 data engineers, if everything had broken all at once for us, that might have been quite difficult for us to fix. And while with you guys, you're a big scalable organization, so if one day actually more things do go wrong, then actually you've got far more resource to actually deal with that. And so I think sort of at the level that we're at even now, I think actually that has really delivered benefits, and we can have that. But then also I think in terms of knowledge, I think because you're such a big organization, you've got a wide array of different knowledges across the business, so that let's say we do come across different kind of extract. If none of our data engineers had come across it before, then that's a bit of an issue in a way that you guys have obviously dealt with so many different ones. You've got far broader knowledge base, and 9 times out of 10, someone will have come across it before, which is different for us.
Definitely that benefit of scale, operating across a very large ecosystem, seeing a lot of different sources does give us an unfair advantage, I'd say. And of course, I'm sure it will resonate with lots of people on the call, but hiring and retaining data engineers is very tricky in any market, but the market we're all existing in now, it makes that extra difficult. So yes, I think looking to software to solve that data engineering problem is a really valid route, and I think. So another question, you talked about the benefit of Kleene, and we're sort of talking about it now, the time that it's freed up. So yes, the data engineering is taken care of, but obviously that transform layer being automated, it's built, it's done, it's scheduled, it runs. And you're able to focus on the insights rather than the plumbing, if you like, the water out of the tap rather than the pipes carrying the water to the tap. Are there any other insights that you haven't mentioned already that you've really been able to sort of construct within the team? Any initiatives that have come out of this as a result?
Yeah, of course. So I mean, I can give examples of like whole sort of analytical pipelines that I've managed to build that sort of wouldn't have been available otherwise. So for example, so searching is a big thing that actually normally I think the analysts would have worked on, but because of all this free time that Kleene has delivered for me, I've been able to work quite heavily on building out all of our search data function. So firstly, I created all the transforms for that, and which would normally be part of my job anyway. But then going further than that, I've been involved in creating the dashboards that then actually fed through to the users. So that's something that I've really been able to work on. It's actually been great to get a bit more experience in building sort of Tableau dashboards and getting involved on that side. So that's sort of a really big initiative that I've been able to work on outside of what would normally be delivered.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and great to have such a collaborative team. You can move through the different parts of that data journey, and you personally, of course, get exposure to the different elements of delivering value from data. That's great to hear. Okay, amazing. Well, look, folks, we're almost at time. I think I'm just quickly scrolling through the questions that we've had come in. I think we've answered all of those. Just a quick note to say that the session has been recorded. We'll share the recording with you all, so you can sort of have a listen back and pick up on some of those details that we've moved over. Obviously, covered a lot of ground in a very short space of time, but otherwise, really appreciate your time and attention this morning. Hopefully, this has been useful. Please feel free to reach out to any of the team at Kleene to sort of learn more about the platform. But otherwise, I wish you a very happy rest of Wednesday, rest of week, and yeah, take care. Thanks, Dan, so much for your time.
Thanks, Matt. I really appreciate it, and thanks all for coming.
Cheers, folks.